Bienvenidos a este evento increíble de Neomedic. Mi nombre es Noah Ajram, soy economista de la Universidad de Princeton con un foco en economía de la salud. También yo tengo mucha experiencia en investigaciones, publicaciones y consultoría en temas de sueño, de Alzheimer's, de farmacéutico y muchos otros. Today I plan to show regarding some of the value that this opportunity and these devices have. Specifically to show the value using economic variables, both quantitative and qualitative, that make this a great investment. And I'll finish with showing some of the financial metrics, especially return on investment, that help show this. Today, I will follow a path to try to give a clear picture of what things can be considered in making a good economic decision with this type of investment. I'm going to start with some of the challenges, the solutions that align with this, and the goals that are generated by this. I'm going to then move into some of the more general economic ideas such as the market, the trends, what this means, and finally I'm going to finish with some of the more specific financial analysis, the return on investment, some modeling and forecasting. The challenges here follow those prevalent throughout the healthcare industry, such as limited resources of time, employees, ability to learn how to use different treatments. Secondly, provision of high quality healthcare that's safe and effective and without negative side effects. And then finally, the decision of what are good economic investments to make, ones that contribute to profit for the business, both short-term and long-term. These principal challenges help define a general goal for us, which is the provision of the highest quality health care possible given the resource available to as many people as possible. And this is often done through smart investments, economic, that grow the business, that recuperate the investment quickly, and they provide immediate and consistent profits to the business. So to reiterate how we can overcome these challenges and meet this principal goal is often, as it is here, with the utilization of the highest or best existing technology in an industry or area where the demand in the market is there. And this allows for the generation of profits, both short and long term. To reiterate and to show visually, the ideal products or targets that are going to help accomplish this solution are ones that share general features that are looked for in a product, effective, they're safe and without negative side effects, they can have the ability to increase the number of patients attended, and finally that we'll focus a lot on today is they provide a good investment and return on investment. And so I believe this product, some of the items that will be the devices we'll be talking about today are great because they align where these intersect, and so they make a great opportunity for that reason. Besides having an ideal product, as I believe is the case here, another super important thing is that the market's right, that the size of the market, the ability for market share, and the trend in the market. One of the great things about these devices is they cover really 6 different areas of subsectors of the healthcare industry that are some of the largest spending in the world, and especially in Colombia, which includes the pain management, aesthetic medicine, physical therapy, orthopedics, rheumatology, and post-operative care. You can see here, each of these industries alone generates more than 500 mil millones de pesos every year in Colombia alone. And one of the other great things to kind of give a better picture of what this actually means to the individual is I tried to break down, okay, in Barranquilla only, for example, the industry 10% share, which is realistic. Another good thing about this market is there's not a ton of competition, right? It's a new technology, a new product where there's not a ton of other substitutes. And so 10% of the market for these industries which is reasonable. In Barranquilla alone for 1 year is nearly 4 billion, 4 billones de pesos in 1 year alone. And I'll show here as well that these are all strongly growing industries, some up to 10% each year. To emphasize a little bit more what I mean by market trends is, along with these all being extremely large markets currently, or sub-industries, all of these are showing the potential for, in the likelihood for, continued growth over the next years. Here, it's using a CAGR, which is a compound annual growth rate that shows anywhere from 1 to 10%, depending on the industry. And this could result in within 10 years, some of these industries being double the value that they currently are today. In order to get a good picture of the return on investment and the financial metrics, of course, another thing that needs to be considered are the costs associated with the investment. And so here, I'm going to go into this a little bit more later, the initial investment costs. But the good thing in this investment is that the initial fixed cost is almost the entirety of the cost, and there are little to no variable costs as with time. So the maintenance, the repairs, the first year, all of these items have a guarantee. And even after that, those costs are not extremely high. And also the material input, as well as the ability to easily understand how to effectively use this equipment, makes it so that there's not a lot of additional costs associated with the investment. Here are some examples of prices, packages of treatments that already exist, already being used, and customers are purchasing here in Barranquilla. And so another great feature about this as well is that it's naturally set up in a way that most of the time customers, patients are going to be buying packages of multiple sessions, which further helps having a constant cash flow and a continuous cash flow. To tie together some of the previously mentioned points, some of the great things why to invest now is, despite the demand that we showed, we see in these industries and in this area, there is not a large supply, right? There's not a saturated market. There's not a lot of competitors, which is great for being able to have a significant market share, as well as the novelty, or more specifically, the best existing technology, which people are willing to pay a premium for, especially if it's safe, effective, comfortable. And then finally, with the cash flow, it's near immediate. Again, it's generating high income. The time factor, the time that it saves, allows for more income to be generated in the same amount of time. And again, it's naturally reoccurring. These packets, being able to sell in packages of multiple sessions, allows so that you have a consistent revenue and cash flow. One thing I believe is extremely important when considering the return on investment is something known as the break-even point, or essentially how long it takes to recuperate the full initial investment. So what this slide shows here is using the initial costs, which includes everything, the taxes, all of that, the full cost for each of the 3 technologies that we're talking about today. How long does that break-even point take, or how long does it take to recuperate the initial investment? So you can see here, also using an analysis of what was shown earlier regarding what are average packages of sessions sold and the cost of those sessions, how long this would take. So for each of these, for the first one, for the manejo, in less than 87 patients, new patients attended, using this average package bought of 12 sessions, you can see already the full initial investment would be recuperated. This would be equivalent to 7 new patients a month, or less than 2 each week. For the other therapies, they're a little bit higher, just given the higher initial cost, but you'll see later how this plays an advantage in the fact of the total profits that can be made in the lifetime of the therapy, of the investment. For the Láserterapia, it would be about 150 patients, new patients, which would be equivalent to 3 each week. And the Rehabilitation, in order to cover the entire initial investment within just over a year, would be, again, another realistic metric of attending 5 new patients each week. If this were the case, this could often be done even quicker. Were you able to have an environment where you could sell at a higher price for the packages? Or in the case that you were able to attend more patients. So again, just using averages, reasonable variables, you can see that for each of these, the return on the full initial investment can be made relatively realistically within 1 year. Further, you can see here that one of the big values that comes from an investment in these technologies and in these devices is the value that the time saved has as well, which is part of the reason why the initial investment can be recuperated so quickly. Here you'll see the average times for each of these treatments, as well as the alternatives that exist, right? This includes TENS, ultrasound, low light, laser therapy, and alternative other HILT technologies or treatments as well. And so you'll see here, using some analysis, that the technologies, the 3, to simplify it, put it all together, will allow for between 50 to 267% more patients to be attended through the time that it saves in the average times of these treatments versus the alternatives. What this ends up equating to is between 30 and over 300% income per hour that can be met in comparison to each of the alternatives by these devices. And here it breaks down a little bit which ones have which return per hour benefit for each of the technologies. And again, this makes it so that, okay, recuperating the full initial investment, or that break-even point, is very realistically possible within 12 or even less months versus 18 or more months for most of the alternative technologies. Here we have the equation for the return on investment, which works by comparing the total lifetime gains in relation to the total fixed investment, or the upfront cost. And you can see for each of these 3 technologies, it's pretty equivalent. And for each of them, it's about 600% return on investment over the lifetime of the product, assuming an average lifetime of 7, which is again very realistic, 7 years, which is a very realistic lifespan of this product, of the devices. It could potentially be more than that, but this is incredible return on investment that is something that with other alternative investments, whether it's with other medical instruments or outside, is something that you're very unlikely to receive anywhere else. Here you can see that even with or after taking into account variable costs, things like maintenance, repair, assuming you had, which is not even likely, but 10 million, 10 million de pesos in maintenance or repairs or other costs during each year, assuming the 7-year lifespan of the devices, you can see here that still for each of the therapies, the magnetotherapia, the Láserterapia, and the Rehabilitation, each of these would have a return on investment of about 550% or more. Again, you can see with the break-even point with very modest sales in prices is 1 year for the magnetotherapia, again 1 year for the Láserterapia, and just over 1 year, 13 months for the Rehabilitation. Finally, here these values included are the lifetime profits or gains generated using, again, averages, reasonable variables for each of the treatment options, each of the investments into these devices. And I'll talk about this more here in 1 second. Here we have some of the financial projections in relation to time, and specifically the profits that they're able to generate each of these devices or treatments. assuming a 7-year lifespan. It could be potentially more, and again, these are all using averages. One of the great things, especially given the break-even point, is that we can see that after the first year, rather than usually here you would see for most investments a negative revenue or negative profit, excuse me. However, in this case, you already have your break-even point within a year, and here you can see within each of the consecutive following years what would be the profit generated from each of these investments, each of these devices. And so despite each of them having a return on investment between 550 and 600%, even with costs, you can see here that one of the things is the Láserterapia, which actually has the greatest initial investment because of the cash flow, the revenue it generates, is in the lifetime the one that provides the most profits. However, one additional thing is to note is that even for all of them, the profits generated over the lifetime of the product, of the device, is between here, over the 7 years, about 800 millones de pesos, up to 2.8 mil millones de pesos in the 7-year lifespan of the product. To summarize some of the key points or takeaways from what I presented, the first would be the high return on investment. For each of these devices that we're focusing on here today, you can see that after considering even the fixed as well as potential variable costs, and using averages in terms of sales, prices, in sessions bought by each patient or client attended, that for each of the technologies has a return on investment of about 550% or higher, really up to 600% or more. Secondly, the quick break-even point is something important to notice, that with reasonable sales, that for each of these, the return on investment can be recuperated fully within more or less a year. It could be lower, depending on if you have sales or higher prices you're able to provide this treatment for. And then the revenue potential is extremely high for each of these, depending on which device. But again, using averages, we can see that it is pretty reasonable to expect between 850 and 2,800 millones de pesos in the lifetime gain or profit generated by each of these. And then finally is the enhanced productivity. So as mentioned before, a part of the value in this technology and these devices is the time that it saves, and in turn the money or the revenue that brings. So for each of these, there's between 50 to 260% increase in productivity through the number of patients or clients that can be attended, because each of these treatments takes less time, requires less time by the administrator. And then this also means between 30 and 300% more revenue per hour using these treatments or devices. Thank you guys all for your time today. Thank you for coming to this event. It's wonderful to have you here, and I'm grateful to be here myself. If you have any questions for me, for Neomedic, I shared my contact information here. You're welcome to reach out, as well as if you have questions about other things regarding the analysis done, some of the averages used, the calculations, anything like that. I'm available for contact. And as well as if you have questions now, I'm happy to receive those as well. Thank you.